Hi everyone, welcome. I think I started yesterday's video from the same exact location. Hopefully I'm not getting too repetitive, but I'm in the same neighborhood as far as the system we're checking in on today, so let's just roll with it. The system we're checking in on today is down here. Basically my arrangement puts the oldest of my systems off to the left, which means everything off here to the right is my newer batch of systems, and the system that we're checking in on is pretty young. It's less than 2 months old. It's this 58-day-old bin of red wiggler worms, and I guess on the whole theme of repetitiveness, this information board about these worms is almost identical to the last time we checked in on them. The estimated worm count has not changed. The only things that have really changed is obviously the age of the system now, 58 days, the number of times it was fed, 5 times now, and the letter D, I think I wrote estimator instead of estimated. So those are the 3 things that are different on the board today. Even the 12-day interval between check-ins this time is the same as last time. So we're going to get this system up on the bench. I'll slip on a glove and we're going to get them fit. So let's get to work. I believe that today's check-in is going to have to begin with some Mosquito Dunks, because my first impression from coming in here was that there's a whole bunch of flying insects buzzing around, although this little guy right here doesn't look like a flying insect. But there are a whole bunch of them, and it's something I've been not seeing a whole lot of in most of my systems, presumably because of my ongoing treatment of my systems with Mosquito Dunks, but perhaps here we just haven't been careful enough to treat the system. Perhaps I've skipped a session or 2. So hopefully this will do the trick. Perhaps I'll even keep this stuff nearby to remind me to even sprinkle a little bit in at the end. And I've got coffee for the worms today, but it's just a little transport carton that I bought the coffee down from the kitchen in. So we'll hang on to this coffee filter here, since we don't have a replacement. It'll continue to serve as our feeding zone indicator down the middle. And let's see, the leaves we laid out on the top surface look really nice. We'll blend these in, along with the Mosquito Dunks that was sprinkled on top of them. And then I got more leaves that we can add too. I've also got my prepared bedding. So I'm curious to see how the worms did from the last time. 12 days to... Man, there's a lot of bugs flying out of here. Ugh, hopefully the Mosquito Dunks does the trick in here. So the feeding they got last time is a little different from what my worms usually get. So almost everything my worms are fed is stuff that's been stored in the freezer. And freezing definitely helps a lot as sort of a almost passive preparatory step for the foods that they get. Because things that have been frozen and then left to thaw often are unchanged. Certain things are almost unaffected by the process, but a lot of other things, especially fruits and vegetables, do seem to just turn to mush as a result of being frozen. But none of the stuff that was put in here last time had been frozen. In fact, it was quite the opposite. What we did was we took a whole bunch of material that came out of a soup that I had prepared, and there were, well, like right here already, we're encountering some of the leftovers from the last feeding. I sort of anticipated that the onion might still be here as leftovers, but the other stuff that we put in here that came out of a soup stock was a few chunks of garlic, so we'll see if that persisted as well. Here we go, a little bit more onion. Pretty popular. It's good to see that the worms are enjoying it, but perhaps it's just a little bit slow on the breakdown. I'm sure they'll get around to finishing this off in due time. And man, oh man, the flying insect activity in this system is ridiculous. I'd pretty much forgotten what it was like to be infested with flying insects, but this system's kind of reminding me. So hopefully the mosquito dunks will save the day here. So let's see. Onion, garlic, oh, celery. There was a pretty good bit of celery put in here. The celery was something I really did not expect to find many leftovers of. So the fact that that stuff is gone, and the fact that the onion is clearly popular because there's worms all over it, tells me that even though there's leftovers, the stuff I gave them is on the road to being broken down. And the garlic, you know, we didn't encounter any examples of the garlic, but then again, they're pretty puny little objects. And I think I do sort of sense the smell of some garlic, and maybe right here, yep. It only took a matter of us mentioning it for it to surface. So those are the leftovers from the last feeding. The feeding they're getting today swings in the opposite direction. So instead of all veggies, this is all fruits. And these poor fruits, this assortment of strawberry, blackberries, and maybe even another type. I can't tell anymore just because of the way the stuff kind of went to mush after it was all thrown into a bag and placed into the freezer. I had to actually chip this stuff away with a knife to break it apart from the ice block that it was formed into. So I think, you know, going from a veggie assortment to a fruit assortment will be a nice little treat for these little guys. A little bit of sugar, a little bit of sweetness. Although somehow I don't think the worms really care one way or the other. So let's see. I've got, like I said earlier, I've got replacement top coating leaves we can throw in. So after we're done feeding, we'll stir everything around and blend those leaves in to incorporate them into the system's bedding. As far as a foundation for today's feeding, we'll place a little bit of my prepared bedding in here. And then we can proceed to dropping in today's meal. You know, before the frozen stuff goes in, maybe we'll just sprinkle a little bit of coffee in first as a little bit of a insulating layer before the frozen stuff goes in. I've also got my worm chow here. Now I don't feel so bad about plopping in the frozen berries. I really wanted to make sure that this stuff went in as quickly as possible so that it doesn't all end up getting stuck to the transport container, but it does seem like we've managed to get the majority out of it. And a lot of this stuff is already basically fluid. So as this stuff thaws out, it's going to drip down into that foundational layer of bedding that we started with. And the stuff already starts damp, so it's not completely dry. But once the juices flow into that cardboard, I assume that it's going to become something that the worms are really going to enjoy. That stuff I put in at the end there is what is that? That's crushed eggshell. And that's the stuff that my worms get as their source of grit. And now we can just start bringing in material with which to cover up the feeding zone. Man, these flying insects are really a nuisance. You would think with me being in here doing everything that I'm doing that I would have scared them all away by now, but they're just buzzing around, treating this place like it's their own. Alright, well, hopefully the mosquito dunks will kick in and change their environment a little bit here. Hopefully reducing the amount of nuisance flying insects in here. Man, oh man. Almost every handful of material that I turn over has flying insects coming out of it. And yeah, I was really starting to get the sense that the mosquito dunks has all but eliminated flying insects down here in my wormery, but it seems like I have a little bit more work to do. So I shouldn't rest on my laurels. I should really make sure that I even go into my systems where there seems to be no issue and make sure I'm persistent in applying this stuff. So let's follow through and let's be generous. And you know, this stuff ain't going to work overnight because it's going to do nothing to the existing flying insects that are already actively living in here and thriving, obviously. What it's really going to do is prevent their next generation from being able to form into fully grown adult flying insects. So these will be able to breed, they'll be able to lay eggs, their eggs will hatch. I believe that the Mosquito Dunks actually works by inhibiting the development of the larva into a subsequent stage and prevents the final transformation of the insects into their adult form. So we'll come in here with my freshly replenished supply of leafy matter, sprinkle out a nice top coating, because it is so nice when you come into the worm bins and find some nice natural materials covering the surface, or at least I like it. It's just my personal preference. Perhaps other people don't see the beauty in it. That's funny, beauty in the worm bins. Well, whatever, to each his own, right? And there's our feeding zone indicator. So that's pretty much it. And you know, I held off on mentioning one key aspect about this particular population of worms, because eventually I want to get to the point where there's really no further reference to their origin. But these are the worms that came out of Outdoor Worm Bag version 6.0, last year's Outdoor Worm Bag. And the only reason I bring it up is because Outdoor Worm Bag version 7 finally went live just a few days ago. I can actually put a link to that video up in the corner if you're interested in seeing it. A lot of people like the Outdoor Worm Bag, so I invite you to check that video out. But that's it for the check-in here, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.